All right, welcome to my Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on the Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. I'd like to thank my good friend and neighbor Nick Script at P2W Fantasy for letting me use his StreamYard and YouTube to produce these hopefully heated divisional debates. Today, I plan to have some fun in part 8 of this eight-part series, the final chapter of this awesome series I've been doing. It's been great. So I got some awesome guests today. We had a last-minute cancellation, so I will be taking the 49ers. But I have Justin Taylor, fellow Scott Fishbowl Division III stud like Kyle and myself. You get to fire up the Arizona heat on these guys and roast them in this division debates. Tell me about yourself, what you do, what's going on.
Former high school football coach for many years, also former sports writer and music entertainment writer. In my younger years, now I am an entrepreneur. I own a couple bars and restaurants and a brewery and a barbecue joint. So I do fantasy football for fun and on the side, even though I basically do it all the time. So
yeah, we're at the Fishbowl, and it's a bar, so they serve beer and food and all that stuff, and somebody comes walking in with this big cooler full of beer, and it's kind of a no-no in Chicago to like bring your own beer to Chicago into a bar, and a big bar like that. But I'm like, hey, whatever. But it was awesome. Their beer was great. So JT Brew had, I see you representing the product. It was good stuff. It was much appreciated.
Yeah, by the way, I was trying not to step on their toes, but I wanted guys to be able to take a beer with them home after the live draft. I didn't want to short anybody because I always bring beer to all my live drafts for fantasy sports, so everybody kind of expects me to always have some in hand.
Yeah, it was great. I took full advantage of the free beer. After that's what I'm good at. So, Dan Cook, the Seahawks are not the Marshawn Lynch Legion of Boom Super Bowl contenders that we remember from and the 12th man might be pretty quiet for a while during this rebuild time, but fly this team to division debate victory for all the Hawks fans out there. What's going on with yourself? Where do you come down the pipeline? What are you guys up to? Where can they find you on Twitter? All that kind of stuff.
At Seahawks Dan 8. So I'm obviously a Seahawks fan, if you couldn't tell. I don't really do much writing or podcasting anymore. I used to be the host of IDP Nation and Debbie IDP Grind. I handed the ball off to Daryl, and he's run with that with my boy, another Kyle B. And they've been running the show over there. I got to jump on there, I guess, before the end of the summer. But I'm a teacher, so I'm now living my best summer life, and I got about a couple more weeks of that.
Enjoy it.
I do run some eliminators that if you check out my profile, you can sign up for. They go to autism charities, the proceeds. So if you want to get some drafting done here in the last month, we got some for you.
Nice. Very good. Kyle A, I guess you're Kyle A, Kyle August. Friend of the show, friend in real life, multiple home league foe, including the Chicago's Fishbowl Division III with Justin and myself. You have the tough task of representing the defending Super Bowl champions. Hope you can ram this team to a division debates title tonight. Tell me about yourself, what you got going on, your awesome show, and where everybody can find you at.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on here. It's always good hanging out with you and chatting. I'm not a Rams fan, but I'm happy to defend this very hopeless franchise here, coming off of a Super Bowl championship. As a Dallas Cowboys fan, I will probably never be in this position to defend the Super Bowl champion, so I'll just live this one up while I got it. But appreciate having me on, John. You guys can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. I'm obviously a fan of the 8th month, so that's my Twitter handle. Yeah, man, just fired up the podcast again for the first time in a few months. Hadn't taken a week off of having a show for many years, and it was nice, to be honest with you, to take the summer off. But it was awesome to be back podcasting again. So I host the Fantasy Football Smackdown. You can find that on the Dynasty Warzone feed. So if you just search Dynasty Warzone in whatever podcast app you enjoy, you'll find the Smackdown, a ton of other great shows there as well. So looking forward to having some fun through the month of August, getting everybody set for their redraft leagues. It's not a 4-letter word. It's still good stuff. And then I'll be doing some waiver wire stuff throughout the year. So you gotta hop on that. But that's really it, man. No writing for me these days. Off of that game. A couple podcasts a week is good for me, but just love talking football, man. So pumped to be here.
Yeah, I was telling Dan before the show, some of these guys, they're pumping out articles, 3 or 4 articles a day. I'm like, it would take me 3 days to write an article, and then I see that you get like 1,000 views and you get $4 or $5 or something like that. I'm like, yeah, that's no way, not for me, man. It's not worth the time. Can't do it.
Yeah.
But I will be taking the 49ers, and we had a last-minute cancellation, so I got stuck taking the team that beat Dan Marino, my guy, in the Super Bowl in his only appearance. That I cannot go an entire football season without someone making fun of me about Dan Marino's ring cabinet and all this. How Dan Marino's not the best quarterback because he never won a Super Bowl. So I'll do my best to make sure that these guys look bad, and that's the least I could do for this community here. But we'll start out here with some NFL news and events. Matt Stafford is dealing with some tendon issues in his throwing elbow. We've been talking about that on a Scott Fishbowl chat recently about how this could be a terrible thing for this franchise if this ends up being a serious problem. The defending Super Bowl champs may not be back in the big game without a healthy quarterback. Deontay Johnson signed a 2-year contract extension. Deshaun Watson 6-game suspension being appealed by the NFL. The Dolphins got forfeited first and third round picks for tampering and telling the coach to throw games, but they can't say that was the real reason why they got their picks taken away. Marquise Brown arrested on criminal speeding charges. We all like to speed a little bit, but when you're in the NFL, you can't do that kind of stuff. You got to be a good citizen. Tim Patrick suffered a season-ending ACL injury. Talk about a guy who had a lot of hype going into this season as a third wide receiver on that team. Now that kind of sucks to see this shit happen. Van Jefferson undergoing knee surgery, another under the radar player that a lot of people have as a sleeper, but we'll see. Alvin Kamara's court date has been delayed for the next 2 months. This might be a situation where he might get to play the entire season, but if they end up in the playoffs and something comes up, or if a video pops up anywhere of him doing whatever he did to whoever, it could be an instantaneous get off the field kind of thing. But if you got Kamara, fire him up while you got him. It might not last long. But Isaiah Spiller taking first team reps in camp. That's a lot of hearsay. A lot of the camp talk is camp talk, but whatever. Gus Edwards, my guy. I've always waited for the Gus Edwards breakout, but it's never going to happen. He might miss a big chunk of the season because of his knee. Deebo Samuel could miss Deebo Samuel agrees to a contract extension with the 49ers. That's it's incentivized him complaining about his running and rushing and all that stuff. Now it's incentivized that he can get extra money if he does run for so many yards. So if they're going to use him as a gadget player, at least he's going to get rewarded as a gadget player. Jacoby Brissett taking first team snaps with the team. That's, it is what it is. He'll be the starter. Mason Rudolph has a great shot at starting. Kenny Pickett and Mr. Biscuit are struggling in camp. Wandale Robinson, who I've drafted about every dynasty rookie draft I've been in, is camp standout, but everybody's a camp standout in camp. Michael Gallup unlikely to be ready for week 1. We kind of already knew that. DK Metcalf contract extension, and then Romeo Doubs getting the great rave reviews in camps from Aaron Rodgers, who usually hates rookies, but this is might be a change here, might be something different. We'll see what happens. That's pretty much the news. Any other news I missed, you guys?
Looks like you hit most of it.
Yeah, there's 1,000 snippets coming out every day. I'm trying to take the somewhat important stuff, but I don't think any of that was important anyway. I just had to yap and say it. So I've been busy scheduling my home league drafts. And some of them turn into White Sox games or garage parties or 2 a.m. bar closures. So I'm making schedules, setting up free agency, roster cuts, making trades, working a ton of overtime at work, and trying to keep a wife and 4 kids happy at the same time. It's kind of awesome, being me right now. So it's it's fun. This is what it's all about. That's why you do this kind of stuff. I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't do that kind of stuff. This is my hobby. I take it seriously. I do the best I can to put a good effort in across the board. That's why I run these leagues, and it's awesome. What's new? What are you guys doing as far as stuff around the house, draft wise, life wise? Kyle.
Yeah, I'll start. I was just hanging out with you, last Sunday, rookie draft of the season. So met up with a handful of guys from one of our home leagues that you put together. So it was great to catch up with everybody. And, most of the guys are, at least half hour apart from each other. So we all made it work and got it done. And definitely I'm sad to see rookie season go. But, like I said, got a lot of redrafts coming up. So that's always fun. But yeah, man, that's it. Just did around this time. summer's kind of widened down just a little bit, and football season's right around the corner. So that's pretty much it, man. I'm just looking forward to some live drafts. These guys were talking before about having a hard time sometimes getting leagues together. Sometimes you got to cut your losses and get as many there as you can. I got one league that we make it mandatory that you got to at least have a representative there. So we were setting up those final details today, getting that spot reserved at a local establishment. So yeah, man, it's been a great summer, but looking forward to football season.
Did they have big Guinnesses there, or did you have to drink the small?
Yeah, big. John John complained so much that this bar that the Guinnesses were too tiny that they sent the bartender over to explain to him that they were correct amount of ounces. So it was pretty funny.
They said it's like, you want a regular size Guinness or a large Guinness? I'm like, well, duh, let's bring a large Guinness over, So they come over with a 16-ounce Guinness. I'm like, all right, I thought this was a regular Guinness. I'd never seen Guinness. I'm like, what are you supposed to, is it an 8-ounce Guinness, like a small one or something? Or like, I was expecting like a 32-ounce Guinness. I'm like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
But no, it was a 16-ounce Guinness. It's fine, but I just don't advertise as a large when that's like the norm,
My other favorite part of that draft was that everyone was like, you brought a draft board like a good commissioner. It was for a rookie draft, but you still had the draft board there. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, we should use it. You asked. And they were like, yeah, let's use it. Like, all right, fine. They used it for like 2.5 rounds of the rookie draft and then just stopped using it. So John and I were the last two people there, and he's like, these jagoffs wasted a draft board. So we peeled all the stickers off it so that he could reuse it somewhere else because it wasn't like paper, so it worked out just fine. But that was pretty funny. I've never had to do that before. So
a draftgets.com board. Yeah, those guys are awesome.
There you go.
But, I got a bunch of other in friends like redraft leagues around their house. I really don't count those as like competitive leagues because it's like my kids and my wife and them. They're just, they make these trades with each other. They're like, I'll trade you DJ Moore for the Patriots backup kicker. And they're like, that was a fair trade. He scores more points last week. I'm like, yeah, well, DJ Moore was hurt, so that's like, I've been playing this for a long time. I can kind of see the what's going on here, but they think they're all slick. But that's what those boards are for, regurgitated boards. So. How about you, JT? Tell me about the restaurant.
Yeah, things are going pretty good. It's been pretty busy here with summers. Everybody's going on vacation, so we're getting ready to school kick back in, and we always get a big rush once football starts and school's back in session. So getting ready to go there. So that's good. Getting the brewery back up and running full because we, with COVID and stuff, we were closed down for most of 2 years. So been working on this last year, trying to get everything back up and running full there. So it's moving. It's good. Obviously, draft season's great. Been drafting nonstop, rookies like you guys all summer long. But just getting, like I said, trying to get everybody scheduled in for these live home leagues. And we always had a buddy make a big board, dry erase board that's about 8 million pounds, and we haul that around each of my bars, and we do the drafts there. So little pro tip for some people out there. Say, well, I do is I hire one of my waitresses and they write all the names on the board and then get us all drinks, and we all tip her. Way better when you do that than instead of us having to stand up there and write the names up or put them on a sticker board. Just a little pro tip: hire a waitress from your local bar and have her do it. Throw her some money from every player. Way more enjoyable that way. But that's what we do. So getting all that stuff set up. I was just saying, I think I had to warn my girlfriend. I think I have 2 to 3 live drafts every weekend for the next 4 weeks, every Saturday and Sunday. So I just told her that be aware that I am going to be gone all day, every day, pretty much every weekend doing live drafts. And she's already give me the look like, oh, here we go. Now it begins, because I've already been doing drafts on my phone all summer. So she's like, but now I got all my live drafts coming up for the leagues I've been in for 10, 15, 20 years. But just getting into more Devi and C2C leagues this year, so pumped about those. Right in the middle of a C2C 45-man draft currently. Right now we're around 26, so pumped about that. Big college fan, so like to kind of see that from a college town. So like to get in the college stuff. So it's been fun. Definitely doing that. The Scott Fishbowl live draft in Chicago was awesome. That was great. And I've got a couple other. I'm in the Scott Fishbowl satellite one right now. We're in about the last round of that, and I'm in another charity auction one that we're just kind of finishing up that too. So
Outstanding. I joined a campus Canton league this year with like Jeff Bell and Christian Williams, and I'm gonna get smeared in this league. It's all professionals, and I don't even watch college football minus Notre Dame games on Saturday once in a while. So I have no idea who anybody's at. So I just did like a trending for college football, like the top 500 players, and like my mind is completely just scrambled now on people's names. I'm like, what did I just do to my head? I can't remember half the pros. Pro players anymore because of how much stuff I had to like write down and memorize and try to look at. It's terrible when jumping into that. I hope in a year or two I'll have this all straightened out, and I'm sure it'll be awesome for my rookie drafts. But it's kind of tough making that transition right from the get go.
Yeah, we always laugh at me because I went to, as everyone says, a million different universities and colleges. I think I went to 4 in my time. So I'm a big homer. So I'm in there picking guys from Syracuse and Missouri and San Diego State. I love the West Coast guys. Illinois, grew up in Champaign, University of Illinois. So me and my co-owner, we're just drafting all the guys from those schools and all the guys I know. I'm like, oh, we got to get this rookie or this freshman, San Diego State 4-star. He's probably not going to play it all this year, but he's going to be a stud. Don't worry about it. He's just going with me on all these college names. He's like, I don't really know that guy, but I'm like, oh, I looked him up. He's going to be great. And I'm talking him in all these Missouri players. He's like, isn't Missouri going to be bad? I'm like, oh, they're all young guys, though. We're going to get them for 3 or 4 years on this team. They're going to blow up eventually. He's just like, he's laughing at me. He's like, I guess, man, whatever you think. So just go with it. And I'll throw in a senior here and there on a random team, but it's going to be funny because our team, we're going to end up about 7 or 8 teams where we're double stacking every position. But it's fun. Well, at least we'll watch the guys we know and like, so we'll be rooting for them.
Besides Jeff George, who was the last offensive player from Illinois that actually made it to the pros?
Oh, Aurelius Ben was probably the last one that actually was like semi-good in the pros. I mean, he had a couple years where he was okay. He wasn't super fantasy relevant, but Illinois has been really struggling to turn out any kind of offensive weapons the last couple years. They've been pretty terrible of late. They got some young, good guys on the team now, some pretty good running backs, but they don't have a lot of guys that are big pro prospects. They've actually turned out way more defensive players in the last couple of years. A couple cornerbacks, a couple safeties. Nate Hobbs from Raiders. I'm blanking. Joseph was a second-round pick, I think, this year at safety. So they've had some really solid defensive players, but, man, they have had terrible quarterback play for about a decade now, and they can't seem to pull anybody together. Sleeper, Isaiah Williams out of St. Louis, used to be a QB, switched to wide receiver last year, and was actually pretty solid in his first year playing wide receiver. He's kind of a sleeper pick for people doing Devy and stuff. If they can actually get some decent quarterback play, DeVito transfers from Syracuse. There he's a senior. If he actually plays even decent, Williams could actually have a pretty good year.
Yeah, I played head-to-head versus Simeon Rice when he went to Mount Carmel. They had this Simeon Rice, and they had 3 or 4 people on that team that had gone to the pros, like and Chris Callaway, Donovan McNabb was the backup quarterback for that.
Yep.
It was like, what the hell? This is. It was crazy. The team was absolutely awesome. So I had like 3 weeks in a row. I played against Rondelle Moore from the Jaguars, Simeon Rice from Mount Carmel, who went to Tampa Bay, and it was like every week I played in that Chicago Catholic League was like, all right, great. Here's a 6'9", 260-pound dude just gonna smack. I played left tackle and they all played right end. I'm like, this is gonna be great, awesome. Who's gonna block that guy?
I went to a smaller school, so we didn't play many guys that ended up making the pros. Probably the most well known would be PJ Fleck, Minnesota's head coach. Played against him in the playoffs. He's from Chicago as well. I think he went to. Can't remember where he went, but he's from there. Went to Northern, but he's probably one of the few guys that are actually at the pro level in some way that I actually played against in high school. So. Yeah,
I played against Eric Johnson too, and his kid just got drafted. That's how old I am. His kid just got drafted by the Colts in round 5 of the NFL draft this year. So we're, that means my AARP card's in the mail sometime soon. So. Dan, how about you?
Not much. Getting ready to go on vacation in a couple days, so that's something to look forward to. Going to go down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it should be a good time. The drive, I'm not looking forward to. It's about 9 hours or so, but
yeah, it's a nice drive. Once you get out of Illinois, it's pretty cool. The scenery gets pretty nice. The further south you go down Illinois, the better it looks. So.
Yeah, I'm driving from PA, so we're driving, I think, through West Virginia. We might clip Kentucky, and something like that.
Yeah. I'll be in Virginia in 2 weeks for my daughter's lacrosse tournament. So we've been to 43 states already with my kids, with all this lacrosse and, everything else. It's crazy. It's nice to see America in a car, but it gets expensive after a while.
My wife likes to go someplace new every year, so we kind of check off everything states as we go. She's like,
try the kitchen.
Well, in Philly, in Philly, it's like let's go to the shore, and it's either Wildwood or Ocean City or Sea Isle or something like that. So, and we did that in our early 20s, but now it's like we need to go see some different stuff.
The out of all the places we've been to, though, like the Utah, Wyoming, that kind of stuff, that's my favorite part of America. It's just everything there is absolutely awesome to see. So the redwoods are cool in California, but that Utah, Wyoming place is probably Bryce Canyon in Wyoming is probably my favorite place in the United States that I've seen so far. So, all right, well, let's start talking about football. We got the quarterback position here. We're going to talk about these divisional debates. We're going to go position by position. First thing we're going to do is start with quarterback position and talk about the team starter. If it helps, you can use any backups or people waiting in the wing to plead your case. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the Seahawks. Dan, tell me about the Seahawks and what they got going on here, because this should be interesting.
Save the best for first.
We have Geno Smith.
All right, next.
Yeah, that pretty much can go. I mean, you know what? I as a fan, I just want them to start Drew Lock. Let him YOLO the ball all over the place. Be good for fantasy. Let him throw 50 picks. I really don't care. Just get the ball DK and lock it, and that's all we care about.
It's been a ball control team with a good defense all the time, and now they just, they have a couple good receivers. Their running backs, they're, pretty decent. Crappy quarterback, but they don't have a defense to lean back on anymore. So I don't know how they're going to play these games out, not being able to score a million points if they're going to go Geno Smith, just play a ball control offense. That's not going to, when they get down big, they might their best option might start out with Geno Smith, and the second half have Drew Lock come in there and just play YOLO the whole second half and play catch up.
Well, it's either suck for Stroud or bust for Bryce is what I'm looking at. So let's
as a Mizzou guy, I love Drew Lock. I would love to see him just get one season. Even if, like you said, even if he throws 50 picks, give him 1 year to just play the whole year and see what he can do. He was kind of a late bloomer at Mizzou. He's a guy who can throw the ball deep. He does throw a pretty good deep ball. Like, might as well let him chuck it up to Metcalf and lock it and see what happens. I mean, what can't get any worse. I don't understand the whole thought process. You made the trade. Why wouldn't you just go lock and see if he's got anything?
That's what I keep saying is just Geno Smith. You know what he is already. Like, just give the ball to Lock. Your plan is probably to lose a good share of games. I mean, you might not be admitting that, but I know you're competing every day and all that stuff that Pete Carroll likes to talk about. Every day is a competition, but just let Lock throw it.
Pete Carroll is probably my least favorite human being on the planet Earth right now. So, I mean, I can't stand that guy. So it couldn't happen. The way he cheated and left USC and what he did there to, it's to walk away with his head, his nose in the air, walk away from all that burning pile of rubbish that he left at USC, tore down the whole program, and then went to the NFL and let everybody else suffer for it. And then they cheated, and that's the only reason they beat Notre Dame that year. So I can't stand that guy. But
I'm just glad he got me a Super Bowl, and now he can go retire.
Yeah,
so.
Go take his shirt off in front of somebody else, whatever.
But I think I'm losing this argument with the other three quarterbacks. I mean, maybe they could produce better than Lance.
Maybe.
That's the only chance they have. Or if Stafford's elbow is really more messed up.
Yeah, speaking of Stafford, Kyle, tell me about Stafford.
Yeah, man. This is obviously coming off the Super Bowl. Great 2021 season for the Rams. He tied a career high with 41 touchdowns last year. It was actually only the third time when I looked this up. He had some close seasons, but It was only the third time in his career that he exceeded 30 touchdowns, which was kind of crazy. But he tied his career high with 31, just under 4,900 passing yards. For fantasy, though, obviously he doesn't run at all. So you're talking about he was 11th amongst quarterbacks in points per game last year from a fantasy perspective. I think he can replicate that this year. I know losing like Woods and OBJ, like so now, getting Allen Robinson's good, but with the Van Jefferson news of his surgery and his own pitch count, which sounds like he's going to be on, I'd be a little bit hesitant, right now. As far as like, if you're a dynasty player, it's tough to find QB. So he's the guy you're relying on. It is what it is, right? He's 34. He's tied to the Rams. He should be there a while. They'll probably they might be conservative with him early on in the season, but as a Cowboys fan, it was a shoulder, not an elbow, but Dak was on a pitch count last spring and he came out of that all right. Maybe the rest will do Stafford enough good there, but I wouldn't, Stafford is probably the second best quarterback in this division behind Kyler for fantasy. If Lance hits, on all cylinders, then I think Stafford's the clear 3, just because, again, that rushing upside for those other 2 QBs is a big deal. But for me, assuming health for Stafford, I think he's going to be a solid top 10 guy, but he doesn't have that like top 5 upside. I don't know that you're going to have a bigger year than last season. And he, again, in points per game, he was just 11th. So the lack of rushing is a big deal for fantasy perspective. So I think he's steady. But he just lacks that elite upside. The other point is will kind of lead into the next position. I won't jump too far ahead, but the Rams only had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. So I just don't see how that's going to happen again. I have some numbers as far as the years before that. And I know Stafford makes a big difference and they feel more comfortable putting it in his hands when they get down the red zone with him and Cooper Kupp. But I just see the touchdown passes coming down. He'll probably be somewhere in the 33 to 35 range. And that will keep him as a top 12 quarterback. But for redraft, I have him ranked at 10th with room to move down if it's not sound like he's going to be ready to go at full strength by the start of the season.
The polar opposite of that is what I have in the 49ers here, which if Trey Lance does get the starting job, he's averaging 100 yards a game, like 6 games, 603 yards passing. Yes, there's a rushing floor here, but 100 yards a game passing is not, I don't know what's going to happen with the offensive weapons on this team if that's what we're up against. Now, I understand for fantasy football, it's the rushing yards are fantastic because generally speaking, you get for every 25 yards passing, you get 1 point. For every 10 yards rushing, you get 1 point. So it's a cheat code for fantasy. But in real life, he had a 56% completion percentage. It's terrible. So Jimmy G's not gone yet, and some people had said that they're not going to be able to trade him. If they could somehow afford him, he's going to stick around. And if they can't, nobody's going to trade him for that kind of contract. Especially with his, he's throwing now, but his injury concerns are still a concern until they're not. So if they keep Jimmy G, and that's enough to bake Trey Lance for one more year, that'd be great. But I think they're going to do whatever they possibly can to cut that money before the season. Get rid of him, make a deal with somebody, do whatever. But I just don't see the passing, the volume of passing that you need to be a fantasy relevant quarterback in Trey Lance. So yes, I like rushing, but I like throwing touchdowns too, especially if you're in a lot of beginners that would start fantasy football with 6 games per passing touchdown. And, usually rushing touchdowns are 6.2, but if you're not getting any passing touchdowns, that's going to be tough sledding. So, Justin, tell me about your boy, Kyler Murray.
I think Murray got to be the number 1 guy in this division. The high upside on him, we've seen it in the past. If he can stay away from injuries and actually play and play full strength, the guy has a number 1 overall potential as a QB. With the rushing, 2 years ago, he had 800 yards rushing. It was down to more around 500 with the injuries last year. But, if you can get 800-plus rushing yards out of him, and he's been right at that 4,000 passing mark. He hasn't hit 4,000 yet in his career. I think he's been on pace a couple times and missed 1 or 2 games and just fell short of it. But if you get a guy like him, if he can somehow eclipse that 4,000 passing yards and he can get up in that 750, 800 rushing yards like he had 2 years ago, the sky's the limit. We've seen it in the past. He runs for a bunch of touchdowns when they get close to the goal line. Last year was one of the little bit of anomaly with the running backs put in some touchdowns, as mostly had been him in the past. And then surprisingly, with how many points he's scored, he still has yet to have a real breakout year as far as passing touchdowns. I think his career high is 26. So if you could bump him up into that low 30s, you get 4,000 yards out of him, low 30s, 700, 800 plus rushing yards. I mean, you're looking at top 3, 4, 5 guy for sure. And you're looking at possibly winning your league for sure if he can stay healthy and stay on the floor. He's got the most talent he's ever had around him offensively. So, I mean, I think the sky's the limit on him.
Yeah, I don't. I get it. He's a little bit small, and he gets. When he does get hit, there's that potential of getting hurt every play. We saw how he plays. First of all, when he gets hurt, and second of all, when the new Call of Duty comes out. So that's it became like a humongous joke around the internet. That stupid contract clause about him watching film and all that stuff. But that's just a slap in the face for everybody, but including himself. But that's
he got that taken out. He got that taken out now. He doesn't have to worry about it. He can play as much Call of Duty as he wants.
I mean, they put it in there for a reason. Obviously, they don't just say like, "Hey, we're just going to put it in there to put it in there." He must not have been studying film. He must have been doing something for them to say, "Hey, you got to sit in the office and watch film." I mean, it's probably the truth of it all. And then it became a public. Then it was. Patrick Mahomes saying, "Oh, this is what it's like to be, minority in the NFL and all." It's like, no, it's because he's not studying film. Then they took it out, and don't even address it anymore. Just let it go. It is what it is. Why do you?
I mean, you're going to get those QBs that are just going to study tape nonstop. You're going to have your Peyton Mannings or Tom Brady's, but I would beg to say most guys in the NFL are probably not putting that much time into watching film. They're doing it when they're at, whatever their Zoom meetings or where else they're doing. But I would say there's probably a lot of guys not out there doing a whole lot of extra on their own, especially the younger guys.
Yeah.
I think more of the older guys have been in the league for a while, started, they've got to get that little, maybe their arms going out a little bit, having that little more reaction time by seeing film helps you out a little bit. But I would doubt very many of these guys coming in out of college are watching loads and loads of film just because. I just don't. I think it's probably happening more often than people would like to admit.
On their own, especially.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, at team meetings and stuff, I can imagine that most of that stuff's covered. Like, hey, we're going to cover 2, we're going zone, we're going, hey, this is what they're doing, this is what, watch out for this, watch out for so-and-so. At that point in time, when you've been in the NFL for a couple of years and you've been a successful NFL quarterback, I think you know how to read a defense pretty well. It's kind of self-explanatory at that point in time. They can throw some wrinkles at you, but you literally have less than 3 seconds to throw the ball every time it snaps. So how much can you really watch to improve yourself? But, all right, so we're going to move to the running back situation here, and we got something to brag about here for you, Dan.
Yeah, I'm happy about this because all Pete Carroll wants to do is run. So the way it looks, you want Rashad Penny for the first 5 weeks until he gets hurt, and then it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show, and he'll be a rookie that could very well be that championship piece that you need on your team because he's going to be the guy. I mean, we've seen DJ Dallas and Travis Homer, and they're bit players. They're good special teams guys. But Walker's a real deal, and, he was Michigan State's motor last year, and they had a very good team. He can catch. He can run. They did beef up the offensive line a little bit, so the first pick was Cross, and then they brought in some free agents. So hopefully they can get running downhill. The unfortunate thing is we might be behind in a lot of games. That's the only downside. But then you got the screen passes. Najee Harris was death by a million paper cuts last year because their quarterback couldn't throw the ball. So
right.
But yeah, I think Kenneth Walker. Penny, I really like Penny, but he's never proven that he can actually stay healthy. And, Walker just looks like a tank. So.
Yeah, the guys even Chris Carson on that team. I mean, he's retired now, obviously, but I mean, they use that like battering ram mentality when when you're a running team, and that's what you do is just run, and it's all between the tackles. It's going to happen. You're going to get hurt. It is what it is. It's not. It's much easier to get out into space and get a screen pass and run out of bounds than it is to run between the tackles. So I get it.
And it was sad about Chris Carson, but I'm kind of glad he didn't try to come back because neck injuries aren't something to mess with.
All right. No, not at all. I think everybody saw the writing on the wall when that happened, that he wasn't going to, that he wasn't coming back. So
they did him right though. They designated him in a way that he still gets his money insurance wise. So that was a nice gesture.
It was.
For a few years he was there. I mean, he was a fantasy stud for the couple of years he did play. So
he sure was. I mean, yeah, he was. He was a fan favorite too. I think everybody liked Chris Carson. It's sad to see that kind of stuff, especially for these young kids. This is their dream, and then to have it end like that, yeah, it's terrible, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, he wasn't old. He was like I think 26, something
like half my age. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's done, but it's territory. I mean,
Kyle, tell me about the Rams.
Yeah, I mentioned it early, with Stafford, that the Rams last season, that was Sean McVay's 5th season as the head coach of the Rams, and they had 10 rushing touchdowns in 2021. Obviously, the big difference here between the 2021 season and the years before was Jared Goff versus Matthew Stafford. So you're going to trust that Cup-Stafford combo down in the red zone more than they maybe would have in previous years. But when you looked at the 4 years before last season, 3 of those 4 years, they were top 5 in rushing touchdowns. They averaged just under 20 rushing touchdowns a season. This is an offense that's going to move the ball as long as Matthew Stafford is even 80%, right? If he's on a pitch count, that probably helps the running backs even more. But I think, you have the injury question mark with Cam Akers. He came back, he played, he was on the field. You can say that, after battling back from it, just a tough injury for any NFL player, but especially a running back. I think Akers still is going to be the lead back there. He should be given the opportunity. Really haven't seen it. I think he has 150 total carries in his career. We just haven't seen this guy given much opportunity. His rookie year, injured last year. I like Akers though in 2022. He's around 15th for me in my rankings. I think he should be a running back too with some decent upside because of the touchdown opportunity for him. When you look at Daryl Henderson, they loved him so much that they brought in Sony Michel last year. And they gave Henderson a pretty decent shot at the beginning of the season, and then injuries just kind of made them go a different direction. When I looked at Henderson, first 8 weeks of the season, that was 7 games for the Rams. He averaged 17.5 fantasy points per game, 7 total touchdowns, and that included 2 through the air. Really nice start to the season. Then after that, from week 8 onward, he only played in 5 games, and he only saw 39 carries. Obviously pretty banged up there, but I think that Henderson, for me, while Akers, I'm kind of looking in that range of, again, around 15th among running backs if you're looking in redraft leagues right now and considering him a running back 2 with upside, mid running back 2 with upside in Dynasty. For me, Henderson is somebody that I'm prioritizing as one of the best backups out there. My little flow chart here was if you consider A.J. Dillon a backup, he's at the top of the list. I think he's the gold standard for backups among running backs right now. But I have Dillon, Tony Pollard, then Daryl Henderson, and I have those guys above of Ramondre Stevenson, Melvin Gordon. That's kind of my hierarchy there of backup running backs, of number 2 guys on their team. So I think Henderson honestly is a pretty decent value in redraft league, somebody that I'm trying to target. You can get for cheap in Dynasty. I picked him up for an early 3rd from somebody just a couple a week or so ago, and just take the shot on it. I think he's not going to be a game breaker by any means, but if Akers isn't 100%, they could work Henderson in. And again, you're looking at an offense that's going to be scoring points. Kyren Williams from Notre Dame, 5th round pick. He's on the pup right now. He's the only other running back really that I think is worth mentioning here. He had foot surgery though in June. He coming off some really good years for Notre Dame, 13 and 14 rushing touchdowns the previous 2 seasons, had 35 catches as well in both those seasons as well. For your Fighting Irish there, John.
Right.
So I think Williams is, he's somebody he won't get any hype because he's not on the field. But I think he's a decent enough pass catcher, could work his way in to this offense. And with Akers entering his 3rd season, we could be looking at a different backfield, like most backfields. You kind of give it like a year or two projection. After that, new show in town. And I think that's going to be the case here. And so maybe Williams works his way into a role here late in the season if he can find the field. But he's just he's a cheap flyer option at this point. So I wish I could tell you for sure out of Akers and Henderson who's the guy in 2022. I feel like it should be Akers, but either way, there's a ton of upside here for any of these running backs on the Rams.
I mean, the rumorville going around right now is that it's going to be 50-50 split. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in that offense? It's the way it was last year at the beginning of the season, or midway through the season. So we'll see what happens. I'm okay with either way. Henderson is on almost every one of my teams for that. I think he's a fantastic running back.
And Henderson was really great to start off the year last year for a lot of people. If he was your RB2 or 3, if you had him as a guy like, hey, I got him later, I can maybe spot start him. He actually got off to a really great start last year before he got banged up. I'm the same way. I've got him on a ton of leagues. I love picking him up. I mean, he's really cheap right now. And so he's a guy I love as a possible backup, especially with Akers' injury. I mean, he's a guy you should put on your roster probably.
Yeah.
There's buying price and selling price. That's the difference. When he's on my team, what I'm going to sell him for is way different than what I'm sending offers for. So and I send really good offers out. That's okay. I got the 49ers, and I mean this is kind of this will be a short tail right now because Elijah Mitchell is going to be the offense in the backfield here. Now, the thought was that Trey Sermon was going to come on this team and run this offense with Trey Lance. That's kind of what he was designed to do. So I still have some kind of hope for Trey Sermon to be something in this offense. If Elijah Mitchell does go down, I'm not sure it's going to be Tyron Davis-Price or Jeff Wilson. I think they're going to give Trey Sermon a resurgence again. So if you have room on the bottom of your bench to stash Trey Sermon, like I said, I honestly believe that this was a situation where Trey Lance and Trey Sermon were meant to play together in this kind of like running option offense. So that's my only thing. But until something happens to Elijah Mitchell, it's a one-man show as far as I'm concerned in this offense. It'll be a running offense, and it's very hard to with a running quarterback. You're going to freeze the linebackers. That's going to have a lot of carries. And we're looking at a 1,000-yard season, probably 1,200-yard season for Elijah Mitchell this year, with not much competition, minus a handful of running quarterbacks generally don't dump the ball off the running back, so don't expect too many PPR points from anybody in the backfield. But Elijah Mitchell is going to get the bulk of the carries here. That's kind of it's just the short and sweet for this offense. So that's kind of all I have to say about as far as that goes. Justin, tell me about the Cardinals running offense here.
So Cardinals, I mean, they haven't had very many explosive running backs in the past. Anybody who got in cheap on James Conner last year lucked out because he was a TD machine. I think he tied second in the league in touchdowns, 15 touchdowns. The big question is there any way he can repeat that this season? I mean, he's probably one of your top candidates for regression on touchdowns. Nice thing is he does catch the ball in the backfield. Problem is he's only topped 900 yards one time in his career. He had 750 last year. When he played, again, kind of like Kyler Murray, when he played, he was pretty solid for you. But he missed a couple games as well in there. The biggest issue for me on Conner is I like Conner as a person. I think he's a solid player, especially in that system. How much upside he's going to give you in fantasy, he's probably at the most expensive price he's ever going to be in most leagues as far as a redraft or in a dynasty league. Like I said, I think he fits their system well. I just don't know if he's ever going to really be a guy that's going to get you a ton of yards. So you're going to be relying on those goal line touchdowns. He does catch the ball pretty well out of the backfield. He's had 30 plus receptions for 300-400 yards the last couple of years. Again, last year was right around that 37 catches, 375 yards or so. So I think if you can get him to somehow get 800, 850 yards, and even if he goes back in touchdowns and gets just 10 or 11 and catches 40 balls for 400, I think he's a solid RB2 for you. The question is just how much are you going to have to spend to get him at that price. But I like him as an RB2 or your RB3 on your team, just because I have a feeling that this Arizona team is going to move the ball. So he's going to have a chance to get touchdowns. You never know with Kyler. If he gets banged up a little more, that's kind of what happened last year. He got banged up a little. They didn't want him to run near the goal line. And so he started handing off the ball a whole lot more than in the past, where he would just take off and run himself. And that's how Connor, really became a stud last year. I mean, if you had him on your team, he helped you big time for most people that had him. The question after him is anybody else relevant at all? Daryl Williams now on that team from the Chiefs. He's a guy that you go, he's kind of similar. He's not as good as Connor, but he's like a similar type of player. Looking at that 700 yards, 30 catches, 300 yards. So how much is he going to steal from Connor? That's a question. Obviously, if you have Connor, he was a nice handcuff to have, because if Connor gets hurt, something goes down, he's going to play that exact Connor role pretty well to a T. So I like him there. Beyond that, it's a real question mark. Benjamin, you got Ingram, the rookie out of USC. Haven't heard much in camp on everybody loves everybody, but I haven't heard much about either one of those guys as far as pushing for any kind of playing time. So again, if you're taking flyers on those guys, then maybe in a rookie draft, like Ingram in a rookie draft, hoping maybe he does something. But in a redraft league, you're probably not looking to add any of those guys. And Benjamin, I know with Edmonds being gone, people kind of were jumping on him immediately, but then they went out and got Williams, and it's like, okay, do they really like that much? So I'm kind of out on him as far as that end. Again, I think for the price, Connor works well in this system because they want to throw the ball and they want to run with Kyler. So I think if you can get Connor for the right price, I think he has huge upside as far as being your RB2.
Yeah, I had Benjamin everywhere. I was like, this is great. If something happens to James Conner, I got the backup. And then they signed Williams, and Keontae Ingram came into picture, and I'm like, all right. So I overpaid for Benjamin, who's going to be nothing but a once maybe 3 carries a game kind of guy. But
and then we all got 30 trade offers from John for us to acquire Benjamin. But one stat I highlighted James Conner on my show earlier this week. And when I looked at it, in the 6 games without Edmonds last season, Connor had 25 catches. And he only had 37 last year, I think, was the total for Connor. So that was big. So those numbers, when you look at that type of stuff, you have to look at it. I mean, Nuke was hurt at that time too. Now Hopkins going to be out 6 games too. They brought in Hollywood. So I don't know if 25 catches in 6 games is the pace, but if they use him in that role and they don't really split those roles up like they were before, I think Connor has enough upside in the passing game to offset the fact that he ain't going to get 15 rushing touchdowns again. So, I like the price, man, and I think you nailed it.
He's here for a good time, not a long time, but it's going to be a good time while he's here. So that's how that works.
Dig it.
Yeah. So let's switch to wide receivers here, and then Justin, we're going to go with you again for the wide receiver situation. You got Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondelle Moore, AJ Green, and then it kind of just jumps off from there. So tell me about the wide receivers here for the Cardinals.
Yeah, obviously Hopkins is the big news with a 6-game suspension, so they're going to have to figure out some things without him early on. He's had some injury woes the last couple of years. So if you're the Cardinals, hopefully getting those 6 games off, maybe it equals out for him and he ends up being solid. Obviously, if he can give you anything 75-80% of what he was those last couple of years in Houston, you're getting great production out of him. AJ Green, I think he's more of going to be a best ball guy. I think he's still got some talent, real NFL talent, as far as being out there and be able to produce, but getting big time stats from him is pretty much bye-bye at this point. You're hoping you get 1 big touchdown in a game. So he's more of a best ball play, but I do like him on this roster because of just the way he can stretch the field and still do some work downfield. Now, Hollywood he's the big question mark. What Hollywood are you getting? Are you getting the Hollywood who looked unreal in a couple games last year? Or are you getting the guy that dropped 3 or 4 balls and cost his team wins? So if he can catch the ball, I think him and Kyler could have, a really good they could be a really good matchup together, hitting him, but Hollywood's got to be able to catch the ball. Hopefully, we just saw the whole speeding thing with him. guessing they're going to try to push that back as far as possible. So I don't know if that will actually affect him at all this season. And if it is, what is it? He's speeding. He didn't get in an accident or anything like that. Is it a 1-game suspension? Is it a fine? It seems a little less on the serious end compared to a lot of the other things we've been seeing lately from NFL players. So that's not something I would worry about as far as Hollywood. That doesn't knock him down on my list. I'm not worried about him missing a bunch of time or anything like that. But again, I think his upside is huge. Like I said, if he can cure a couple of those drops, man, the guy's got speed. He's explosive. Cliff Kingsbury wants to throw the ball downfield. Murray wants to throw the ball downfield. He's going to have every opportunity to make catches down the field, and you got to figure he's going to get a lot more targets than he was getting in a run-heavy Baltimore offense. So depending on where you can get him in drafts, I mean, there was I can't remember the exact weeks last year, but I think it was like weeks 1 through 5. He was top 3 or 4 in the entire NFL at PPR. So he's shown that high end ability. And so I think if he can mesh with Kyler, and I can see Kyler going to him a ton without Hopkins early on in the season. And then when Hopkins comes back, he's already made that connection with him. They know each other from college. I mean, I think their passing game has huge upside. As far as the wide receivers, the one guy no one talks about anymore, hurts my heart, Andy Isabella is just I can't understand why they can't ever figure out how to use him. I was really hoping they would move him in the offseason to someone like the Bears. I thought he would have been a good addition to somebody like getting a new start, maybe get a chance. I mean, I still think the guy's got talent. You've seen him make some big plays. It's just he can't seem to find any consistency to get on the field. If he could, I think he would be a great, third, fourth option behind all those guys. But we'll see. You'll see. I don't know who they're going to give extra reps to without Hopkins in the early part of the season. Be interesting to see if they go a little more 2 tight end sets there in the early going.
Andy Isabella belongs on the Patriots. That's kind of, he's just
he could probably crush for the Patriots.
Oh yes,
I just want to see the guy play. He's sitting on the end of my benches in so many dynasty leagues. I just want to see him get a chance.
I think everybody has had like a 3-game love affair with Andy Isabella. It just never panned out, and they're like, oh, he's come and gone. I bet you if you went on like your history on Sleeper, he's been on everybody's team in the entire league at least once. That's kind of how that works.
He did win me a bet one time, rookie year. I did bet somebody in my league that he would have more receiving yards than the guy out of Iowa State that also went there, and he ended up not playing the whole year, and I won. Andy Isabella only had like 100-some yards receiving, but I won the bet, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
You think Antoine Wesley or whatever
the touchdown
nuke role like he did last year?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That's why I said Wesley, I don't know where he slots in. He's obviously going to get a chance with Hopkins being out early. So if he can carve out a role for himself, you can see, he had some success, had some touchdowns last year. So it would be interesting to see kind of if that was a fluke where he kind of was relevant, or if now with D-Hop being out, is he going to be a guy that they're going to look to a lot more? I think they've got a lot of people to throw to. They've got Hollywood. D-Hop comes back. He's going to be a guy they're going to be targeting. I think Ertz at tight end is going to, now that he's been there, he's going to be there a whole offseason. I think I would see his production going way up. And again, I think Connor can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think they're going to have a lot of fantasy relevant players on this offense.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot more 2 tight end sets than people expect. Than it will be like the 5 receiver sets they had in the past. But that's something to be determined. We'll find out. Let's see. Kyle, tell me about the Rams wide receivers here. They got some talk about upgrades. This is a situation that everybody would love to be in if they were a fan of any team. They get Cooper Kupp, then an underperforming Allen Robinson who just threw a towel in Chicago. Too bad we had some problems with Van Jefferson just got hurt, so it's kind of. But after that, it's Tutu Atwell, Ben Skowronek, that Brandon Powell, a bunch of nobodies. But Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson is a pretty nice situation to be in for wide receivers.
Yeah. Before we move on, because this guy's name is like Voldemort in my house, but Hakeem Butler was the receiver that you were.
That's what he was. Yes,
Hakeem
Butler. That was
dude.
the one.
F that dude. I owned him in too many places. Also, Andy Isabella was in a classic trade between John and myself one time. Andy Isabella for David Johnson. That worked out for the both of us. We were able to successfully cut those two guys or trade them off for junk. So just crazy. And then, not to rewind too far back, but an actual fantasy relevant thing, because this blew me away. I was doing some research the other day. Marquise Brown had 145 targets, which was 9th in the league last year in Baltimore. Like, it's the whole thing was he's bitching and moaning about getting out of there because he wants to go to a passing offense. You had the 9th most targets. Like, I'm not quite sure he's going to see a $145 with Nuke on the other side. So it's gonna be interesting to see, but that's enough rewind for you. But for the Rams, I mean, okay, here this is my favorite stat from the end of last year, and I'm going through everything. 22 targets, 22 receptions, 331 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Those were the advantages that Cooper Kupp had in targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns over the number 2 in each of those categories.
Yeah.
Insanity. The dude was 4.5 points better than the number 2 wide receiver in points per game. Just absolutely bonkers that, like, how good he was last year. I mentioned the touchdown regression from Stafford throwing the ball. Even if he's healthy, I just don't see 41 touchdowns again. So I think Kupp will have a tremendous year, but 145 catches, just under 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns on 191 targets. That's going to be tough. Stafford threw the ball a lot last year, over 600 attempts. So Kupp should still be up there in the top 3 wide receivers for 2022. For Dynasty, it's interesting that he's interesting for sure because he just turned 29. He is right now wide receiver 6 in Dynasty DLF rankings. I mean, I just don't see him being able to repeat what he did last season, but he still should be damn good. So if you have him, you're thrilled. If you're trying to acquire him in any format, you're gonna have to overpay because I just don't see him returning the investment you have to put in on him. He's gonna have a great season, I'm sure, as long as Stafford's healthy. All these wide receivers have that little asterisk next to their name. But Kupp for me is the wide receiver 1 in 2022. I'm gonna take him over Jefferson and Chase. As long as Stafford is we're hearing positive reports out of him, you kind of know what you got in Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson, like you said, he completely just bailed. I mean, last year was just a freaking disaster. 7 points per game. I mean, you should be able to fall out of bed with his talent and score better than that. The quarterback situation, God does not want this man to have a good quarterback. If Matthew Stafford gets hurt, we all need to blame Allen Robinson because that man is not meant to play with a professional quarterback. I think for this season, again, a broken record. As long as Stafford's healthy, Allen Robinson should put up some good numbers. Between OBJ and Robert Woods, that's 117 targets vacated from those 2 wide receivers that perfectly aligned last year as far as OBJ getting acquired and then Woods getting injured. So there's opportunity there. Van Jefferson had another 80 plus targets. So if Jefferson's not 100% on the field, I'm hoping for Allen Robinson, 130 would be great for him. And I think he could produce at a low end wide receiver 2 pace. If someone's drafting him any higher than that, I would, or thinking that you're going to get top 15, I don't see that happening. I just think that Kupp demands too much from Stafford. I expect the rushing touchdowns to turn up for this team. So I think Allen Robinson should be solid, but I'm not getting overly excited about him. But I think he just should be just a solid wide receiver 2 based off of where he's playing. And then Van Jefferson, if you listen to the SmackDown last year, like every week, I pretty much I think my start of the week was always Van Jefferson, and my reasoning was F OBJ. I just hate Odell Beckham Jr. That worked out sometimes. Then the playoffs kind of happened, and then I stopped doing a podcast because I didn't need to worry about that. But Jefferson, 800 yards and 6 touchdowns, really solid last year. But if he misses any time to this knee procedure, which is probably likely, you can't really draft him in redraft leagues and expect anything because you don't want to burn a roster spot for the first few weeks on him. And in Dynasty, he just turned 26 in June. Allen Robinson will probably be there at least this year and next based off his contract. So he'll probably play third fiddle. And then there's always the option of them bringing in OBJ for a playoff run. And that could impact your fantasy playoffs. So he's really tough to trust from a fantasy perspective. I want him to be healthy because without Van Jefferson, Matthew Stafford's weapons take a hit. I mean, it's really those 2 guys, and that's about it. Unless they really start leveraging the running backs in the passing game, which They really didn't last year, and they haven't added anybody else of significance. John mentioned all of the shoe clerks, as my buddy Memphis would say, that they have in that depth chart. It's horrible. I mean, Tutu Atwell. I mean, I'm like two Tutu Atwells tall. Like, that's how short this dude is. So I'm not counting on anybody else in this offense to produce at the wide receiver group. So Cooper Kupp, here's your 190 targets once again. Let's hope those touchdowns keep carrying over. But that's about it for the wide receivers for the Rams for me.
Yeah, I've got burned by OBJ so many times in fantasy football, so I get it. But he will be back here. They love him. He loves being there. It's, if these guys stay healthy all season long, and Stafford, his arm holds up, and I mean, I can see these guys going right back to the Super Bowl again with all this talent. And just when the guys are starting to get burned off and getting too much work, you bring in OBJ to who's a fantastic receiver when he's healthy, but it's a great problem to have as a number 3 kind of part-time receiver. He's all right. Yeah, he's right. He's all right. That guy's okay.
Well, speaking of small receivers like Tutu, the one guy I did forget was Rondelle Moore. Like, is he actually gonna be something for the Cardinals or not? I mean, he had 1 or 2 really good games and then completely disappeared in every other game for the rest of the season. So the question is, do they actually have a plan for him? Are they going to try to do something specific with him, or is he going to have to beat somebody out? Because I think if he's going to try to get more looks, I think they're going to have to figure out ways to intentionally get him the ball, because I just don't think he's going to get enough separation and make plays on his own unless they're absolutely looking to try to get him the ball in his hands. So he's a guy that he's crazy, especially Dynasty. You maybe want to take a chance on him, redraft. I don't know if I'd want to have him on my redraft roster at all. But a Dynasty, if you can stash him and hopefully he hits, maybe. But he's a guy that if I can get any value from right now, I'm trying to trade him. If somebody's interested in him, think he still has a huge upside, I'm trying to move him, because I'm just not so sure about him. I've got a league where I can leave him on the taxi. He's sitting on my taxi all year this year unless he does something else for me. I'm just going to let him sit down there and see if he can make anything happen.
If you can put a prop on negative depth of target, you put the money on Rondelle Moore. I mean, what the hell?
I traded away Rondelle Moore to get Michael Carter in the league probably about a month ago, and the guy was happy to take Rondelle Moore, and I was super happy to get him off my roster at the same time. So it worked out pretty nice for me, especially with the reports coming out with Michael Carter being the PPR back in that offense. So I'm happy about that.
I like that trade. I'd take that all day.
I like it too. Thanks, man.
Yeah, great job, John.
Wait, hold on. Let me pat myself on the back. That was great. You guys should be on here more often. This is great.
Yeah, no kidding. The fluff squad going here. Jesus.
Dan, tell me about the Seahawks wide receivers. You got Metcalf, Lockett, some Bo Melton. I love Dwayne Eskridge. I'm not really sure why, or D Eskridge now. Not really sure why he's.
So here's the deal. I in best ball, give me Lockett and Metcalf all day. Starting these guys in lineups, actually having to click the box. I mean, you have to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a choice. But and this is with Russell Wilson. Like, he played. I mean, he took advantage of what the defense gave him. I don't know that. I mean, Geno fed DK the ball a little bit when he played last year. I would like Drew Lock to play so he could just throw the ball downfield, because this is where these two really excel. To find, Tyler Lockett gets separation downfield. He's him and Metcalf both, Metcalf is a huge target. So, I mean, hopefully that can help him with the deep ball. But these two are some of the most frustrating guys to own, because it seems like, a week. That's why best ball, these guys are great. But yeah, the slot, I don't know. I mean, Freddie Swain's been around a couple years. D Eskridge, I'd like to see what he actually can do, because they didn't really do much with him last year.
He was hurt.
Yeah.
He's still hurt.
He's always hurt. Yeah, I know. I love him, but yeah, he's always hurt.
I mean, we have an Olympian, Marquise Goodwin. He's fast. I don't know. But yeah, it's behind Metcalf and Lockett, there's going to be some guys that'll have a 2-touchdown week here or there, but nothing to concern.
I was just looking this up because we're in the middle. It's an auction, so we're kind of in the middle of it. We got 19 receivers that have come off the board, and it's a contract league. So, but we're at the point with 19 receivers. Everybody's still getting the young guys. A lot of multi-years coming off the board. Out of the 19 receivers that have been auctioned off, only I got DK Metcalf 18th in salary. Like I put a bid out there, and it was crickets. Like no one did. The only receiver that has been off the board that was at lower price was DeAndre Hopkins because of suspension. Like I don't get it. Like why he is so undervalued. He's undervalued in my opinion. He's still going to be solid. You just got to work your way through 2022.
Yeah. You remember that breakout game he had, and everybody was like, DK is the number one wide receiver. He's the greatest thing that's ever happened. Yeah. And then, he had games like Jalen Ramsey shut him down twice last year. So don't start against the Rams, maybe. Or you start him anyway because you have to, probably.
Yeah.
But, they're boom-bust guys. And they kind of always have been. I mean, historically, Daryl Jackson would have his games. You'd have Doug Baldwin Doug Baldwin did go through that stretch where he had like 10 consecutive boom games. But
yeah, right.
That it's if you look at the splits, it's either Lockett or Metcalf. So you kind of have to look at, maybe you look historically, what teams does Lockett beat up? What teams does Metcalf beat up and start them?
I don't think you have a choice to start, but to start DK Metcalf every week. For what you paid for him, if he's on your team or what you had to trade to get him, he's in your starting lineup whether you like it or not. Unfortunately,
take him in best ball, and then you can relax when they have their boom games.
I hate best ball. I stopped saying the word best. Best ball is for people that just like to draft 160 teams and walk away at the end of the year and say, "Look at me, I won a league because I know what I'm doing." Like, and they don't show you the other 174 leagues they didn't do shit in. That's best ball's terrible.
How do you really feel about this?
Best ball is for nobodies.
Once you get past 40 leagues, though, you kind of have to do best ball because then it's like
I get the whole best ball thing. I was teammates with Mike Tagliere in a couple leagues. I get it. He was, he got all these charity leagues and all these other ones and everything. He's like, I only do best ball for this stuff now. If they want me to set a lineup, I'm not playing. I'm not doing it. I'm just doing best ball. And if you're in that many leagues and you just kind of like, hey, I'm going to show up and draft and have a good time and be part of some kind of charity event. I get the best ball thing. You said it. You draft. You have a great time on draft night, and then you walk away, and that's what best ball's made for. Or to bet $5 and hopefully you can win 25 or 50 or 80, whatever the deal, whatever your buy-in is at the end of the year. But for people who are like, I like competitive lineups. I like doing my kind of thing. I'm not a best ball fan whatsoever. It's almost like cheating, that kind of deal. But I understand its place. I get it. It's awesome, but it's not for me. So stop talking about best ball, damn it.
Hitting that button, knowing there's a chance that DK could have 2 catches for like 15 yards.
That's for the more Marquez Valdez-Scantling kind of players. The deep, the Donovan Peoples-Jones. Those are awesome for that kind of stuff. But yeah Metcalfs, Lockett's. But
boom bust guys.
Boom bust guys is exactly right. Like Mike Evans is kind of a boom bust guy sometimes. He has up to 275 yards and 18 touchdowns one game, and he has 2 catches for 4 yards 2 games in a row. And it's like this is his stats. He gets 1,000 yards every year, but he has some really bad weeks sometimes. So
yeah.
That's just me ranting because I had him and he burns me sometimes. But that's for me. I got the 49ers here. And there's only 2 guys to talk about on this team, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And like I said before, if our quarterback, Lance is the quarterback here, and he has a 56% passing rate, and he's only throwing the ball last year they threw the ball 460 times, and that was with a less running quarterback. What is it going to be, 420 passes this year maybe? And you got Kittle's probably the leading receiver per week on the team. I just don't understand why everybody's goo gaga over Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I understand the rushing aspect of Deebo Samuel's game. I would say he's probably going to get 100 targets. And him leading the team. But I'm not really sold on any of these wide receivers as far as fantasy is concerned. I think they're both really overrated. Everybody calls Brandon Ayuk a big-time sleeper this year. As far as talented players are concerned, I think they're fantastic, fabulous players. But I think the system is not made, to accommodate a fantastic tight end and two good receivers that aren't going to get the ball very often, especially with Trey Lance's accuracy. I'm very skeptical about Debo and Brandon Ayuk. I'm not really sure. How do you guys feel about these guys? Because maybe it's just me being like, watching Trey Lance and seeing these, that it's not going to be. Jimmy G is a little bit more accurate than Trey Lance, and he wasn't that crazy good. What do you guys think about this situation?
I'm completely out on Ayuk. I might be one of those. I don't want him on any of my teams. I accidentally got him last year on one team when my computer internet went out during an auction draft, and the computer drafted for me and totally screwed my team up because I spent way too much money on him. I do not like him at all. He's an okay player, but like you said, I don't like the system. I don't think they're going to throw the ball a ton. I just do not see him being a super relevant guy. I know people are talking about him being kind of a sleeper, but he would have to fall mighty far for me to take him in almost any of my leagues. I don't have him in any league currently, and I don't plan on taking him in any other leagues. Debo, with the rushing upside and the ways they gadget to get him the ball, I still think he's going to be fantasy relevant. Is he at his peak? That's the question. Has he hit, peak value? I know in one of my leagues, a guy traded him to get the 1-1 where he could take Breece Hall. So he had to deal with that and made a move there. I've got Debo on a couple of teams, but it's again, depending on how many rushes he gets, I think that's his upside. If he's relying on 1 million targets in order to be, have a really good fantasy season, I think that's where Debo's going to get hurt there. They've got to figure out a way to use him with Lance. If Lance is going to be the starter and run the ball a lot, they got to figure out how to get some touches to Debo in those situations.
Dan, what do you think?
I feel a lot better about the situation if I knew if Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk sat down and ate breakfast every morning, like Matt Stafford did. And maybe if Kyle Shanahan was invited too, because Ayuk spent most of last year in Shanahan's doghouse for whatever reason. I guess Shanahan, he pissed in his Cheerios or something. I don't know. But Shanahan hated the guy for half the year. That's where Debo really got his opportunity because he was doing everything he could to keep Ayuk off the field. So here, Debo, show him how it's done. And, I think Lance didn't really get – he's a rookie. So he didn't
100 yards a game, though, for 6 games? That's crazy.
He didn't really get a ton of
they rely on running the ball on defense. That's kind of their situation. So
they do, and I think Lance will bring a little bit more of a. He's not going to throw the ball super downfield. It's going to be a lot of crossing, Debo out in the backfield, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think the receivers can still. Debo is probably the only guy I'd want. I'd start Ayuk in bye weeks. Is about it.
Yeah, that's their job. They're a ball control offense. With Jimmy G, they were very, very efficient offense. They kept the ball in their hands. They methodically drove down the field, and the defense kept them in games. And they made it all the way to the third round of playoffs or second round of playoffs with that situation. So, they have it. I just don't understand. I don't think that Trey Lance will be able to make the passes that Jimmy G made to keep them relevant in games. That's just one or two stall drives is all it's going to take to put them behind the 8 ball where you're going to have to force Trey Lance to pass instead of running the ball, and then you're SOL. So I'm kind of out on both these receivers at their cost anyway. For like you said, JT, if they fall to me at super low, yeah, I'll take them and use them later. But people are expecting Debo Samuel to be their wide receiver 1. I don't get that.
And Debo, he gave you value last year because he scored a lot of points, but you also got him because you didn't have to spend a ton to get him.
Right.
So that helps. So he was your second or third or fourth guy, and then he gave you some wide receiver 1 numbers. Was huge. But if you're going in and, I'm seeing drafts from people and taking Debo as their number 1 wideout, I'm like, if he's my number 1 guy, I'm going to be real nervous every week how much they're going to use him. And, can he make that transition like Tyreek Hill did, where he was the gadget guy who, kick return, punt returns, got handoffs in the backfield, and then eventually became that full-time wide receiver that you had to pay attention to all the time. Does Debo have that in him? I don't know. I don't know if he can be that guy without consistently staying a gadget guy. And again, Lance, he might have huge fantasy upside, but I'm not sure what value he's going to bring. I mean, if people are already out on Justin Fields throwing the ball, and he's a guy who knew how to, proved he could throw the ball in college. I mean, Lance didn't prove he could throw the ball a whole lot in college. No. So I would be very nervous of attaching my horses to the 49ers offense if I didn't have to, unless it's good costs. And again, I'm even worried about Eli Mitchell. I mean, I'm not taking him anywhere. I think he could be good, but I'm worried about him injury wise. And then you've seen Shanahan play a million running backs. And I've had teams where I've had every one of the Niners running backs because I just didn't know who was going to play every week. And it just drove me crazy.
We all been there. We've all been there plenty of times. Yeah, like you said, the big thing with Tyreek Hill and Debo, the difference is the quarterbacks. I mean, Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill because he's a special athlete, just like Debo is, but he does not have Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. That's a big difference. I mean, that kind of helps a little bit in fantasy and real life. So,
absolutely.
So, all right, let's switch to tight ends here to finish this out with tight ends. Kyle, tell me about this awesome situation at tight end for the Rams.
Yeah, this is the one I get to lead off, and it's the one that the Rams are by far the worst in my opinion. Higbee, remember that 3-game stretch when he had 400 yards and 6 touchdowns or whatever 2 years ago? That was fun. I mean, he was tight end 14 in points per game last season, 61 catches, 560 yards, 5 touchdowns. Tyler Higbee was pretty much the definition of why leagues want to get rid of the tight end position, just boring crap. And you're literally just sitting there hoping that he scores a TD. 85 targets, 13th the most among tight ends. Maybe with Van Jefferson out and no OBJ there for the first part of the season, maybe he sees a few more looks, but he's just not somebody that I'm real interested in. He is I don't have anyone else option in my opinion. There's guys like Austin Hooper I'd rather even take a shot on this year over Higbee. I'm not excited. So I'm not really doing a good job selling that this is much to talk about. But I will say, just for your redraft leagues, week 1, the Rams play the Bills. The Bills were the 3rd best in the league against the tight end position for fantasy. Those numbers don't always carry over from year to year, but the safeties for the Bills, veteran guy, as long as Poyer's there. I'm not interested then in streaming him week 1, Tyler Higbee. So I'm not going to draft him even in redraft leagues. I'll start with somebody else who has a better week 1 matchup. So they don't really have much behind him that I'm overly interested in Dynasty either. They've burned some 3rd round picks to the ground the last couple years, and then you stash those guys, and then what's his nuts is now a wide receiver. So I mean, he was so blocked by Tyler Higbee. So I don't really see anybody here that I'm overly interested in as far as a prospect either. So there's my stamp of approval for this.
Kendall Blanton had a week last year. We did okay, yeah.
Yeah, no dice. I'm good.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, Dan, tell me maybe a step up here on the tight end situation.
Yeah, I mean, Noah Fant was an upgrade. You still got Big Montana, Will Dissly, and Colby Parkinson in his 3rd-year breakout at tight end.
How much money did they give Dissly? What the hell was that?
Right.
That was the craziest thing ever.
He had those couple stretches where he went off with 2 years ago. He had a 3 or 4 game stretch where he was unbletable, and then it was injury and then disappeared.
Yeah, and then
they got Fant. And they're like, you know what we need to do? Pay a tight end. That's what we need to do. Let's freaking go.
Well, I think it comes into the Dissly to be a better blocker than Fant. So I think a lot of 2 tight end sets, a lot of running the ball. Fant will probably be the de facto slot middle of the field guy because Lockett can serve that purpose too. But the one nice thing is Locke and Fant have a connection, so hopefully they can be the guys playing. They have experience. I just hope they don't start Geno Smith.
I think Fancy Noah Fantastic is, by the way, what I like to call him. But I think he's a buyer right now. I think he's a serious a buy low.
He's a good guy if you miss out on your top 5 tight ends.
Yeah,
he's a guy you can get really late and could produce. He's your guy that he scores a touchdown. He's a plus for you for the week for tight end. The problem,
I think he's got some upside there. I think, like you said, they don't really have a slot guy that they go to a lot. I think he could work the middle of that field quite a bit. In the past, Albert O was Drew Lock's tight end at Mizzou. He'd love to hit him in the red zone. I think Fant's going to have some big upside in the red zone. Again, is he going to catch 8-9 balls a game? Probably not, but I think he's going to have a shot to get you 4 or 5 catches, maybe get one long one in there and get a touchdown. So, I mean, for the price he's at right now, I'm actually trying to require him in leagues because a lot of people they're down on the Seahawks. They're down with the quarterback situation. So he's kind of just dropped off people's radar, and I'm taking him in a lot of places at the spot. Like I said, if you're punting tight end in a league and you're just waiting, he's definitely worth a shot. Of taking a guy a little bit later in the draft where you can sit on him. If he hits, awesome. If he doesn't, you didn't spend much, and you probably grabbed another tight end that's about the same and give him a shot back to week. So he's definitely a guy I'm looking at and targeting because, again, they're going to throw a lot of deep passes to those guys. They're going to have to drop some stuff off, and both their running backs haven't proven to catch a lot of passes in their careers. So I just think Fant has a real shot, to see some targets this year, especially I think if Locke plays.
Revenge game week 1. If you need any other reason, don't draft Tyler Higbee. He sucks. He's playing the Bills. Revenge game week 1. Noah Fant. Let's go.
There you go.
Let's ride.
It's going to be a long. I wish Russell Wilson the best. It was time. Him and Pete were at their wits' end. I wish him the best. I'm not one of those bitter Seahawks fans. It's like burning my Russell Wilson stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be a long night.
Yeah, JT, tell me about these. You got Zach Ertz, who I traded to Kyle right before he signed a 3-year contract. I was like, Zach Ertz is gonna go. But I don't know what he's going to do. So I traded him for peanuts to Kyle in our league. And then all of a sudden, he's got this 3-year contract. And then all this stuff happens with the wide receivers. And I'm like, oh, great. And there's a top probably 7 tight end I just let go for absolutely nothing. And, that happens sometimes in dynasty football, making some bad moves. But I'm pretty good at making bad moves. So
I got him for Troutman straight up last year in a league. I was pretty pumped about that.
Cash,
so
cash
I was the guy offered it to me, actually. I was like, oh, I'll take a shot at Ertz in a tight end premium league for Troutman. So, but I think this is a great situation for him, honestly. Came in on the trade from the Eagles, was trying to find his footing, kind of where he fit on the team. I think now he's had the whole offseason. He's going to have a whole year this year. I mean, I'm a buyer on Ertz. I think is he going to give you that 90 catches, 1,000 yards that he was putting up a couple years back? Probably not. But does he have top 5 tight end upside? I think so. I mean, I definitely think so, especially if with Nuke out in the beginning here, Hollywood, they could be either 1-2, very likely. So I think the way they're going to move him around, I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. Like I said this whole time, I like Ertz a ton. I just think he fits in on this team really well, and he kind of can do all those things. I think they've really got a really good mix of the older players, experienced guys, and some young guys that have some excitement. So if they can figure out, if Cliff Kingsbury can figure out how to work all these guys together, I mean, I'm a buyer on Arizona's offense. I mean, are they going to blow some real life games? Probably. I don't know what their overall record is going to be. They got a pretty tough schedule, but fantasy purposes, I like a lot of these guys. I'm a buyer on Ertz. I think he's got potential to have a top 5 season. And then Trey McBride, the rookie out of Colorado State, in a dynasty, I'm buying him up on dynasty leagues for sure. Redraft is a little more iffy. Maybe he's worth if you get Ertz or you take him late. I could see them going kind of the old school way they did with the Eagles a little bit, playing a little 2 tight end, going McBride and Ertz together, especially with Nuke out early. So I like the idea. I'm definitely taking a flyer on McBride where I can get him redraft leagues. And maybe if you got a deep bench and you could take him late, he's a guy to look at. Definitely like his upside. He's got that guy that's looking at that year 2, 3 breakout that a lot of rookie tight ends do, and that gets you that perfect timing of him right behind Ertz. So you get Ertz for the next 2, 3 years. You get him in these prime years before he kind of hits that cliff as far as getting into his mid-30s. And I think McBride's a guy who comes right behind him. A guy I think if he played at a bigger school and would have had more touchdowns in college, I think a lot more people would have been on him. Guy caught everything they threw to him at Colorado State. He just happened to have, I think it was 1 touchdown or something ridiculous there that they struggled. But, I mean, they threw him the ball a ton. So he's a guy that has seen targets. And I mean, if I'm coming out and I'm looking at it and I got Kyler in the gun with Connor next to him, I got these 2 tight ends in there, then Hollywood on the outside and A.J. Green, I'm liking my chances. There's a lot of options there with that offense. And I'd like to see him play McBride early on. I don't think he's going to cut heavily into Ertz's. So I don't think it's one of those things where Ertz is going to see a lot less targets because of it. So I like them both. I like McBride probably more as a player and potential this year than he probably is as far as high-end fantasy guy. But I'm all in on Ertz. I mean, I think he easily right behind Kittle could be the best tight end in this division. And if he stays healthy, you've seen the problems Kittle's had. Who knows what's going to happen with Lance? If I'm taking a tight end in this division, Ertz is my number 1 guy, and I'm probably taking – for the price, Fant is maybe my number 2 guy if I can get him a little late and not have to spend much on him. Kittle, again, that's a tough buy for me. I like him a lot, but with the injuries and Lance, you just don't know what you're going to get out of him this year.
I think you explained that perfectly, where it's a perfect situation of older guys and newer guys coming in the league. They did a real good job of balancing this roster here in Arizona. So if I was a Cardinals fan, I'd be pretty happy about the future with what they have set up here.
I think if you're a Cardinals fan, this is the greatest team you've had.
Sure.
Almost ever. I mean, as the Cardinals organization, I mean, going all the way back to the St. Louis days, I mean, this is the best team they've had in a really long time, especially if you're a fantasy fan. This is a super relevant fantasy team with all the guys they have on offense. If you play IDP, they got a ton of stud defensive guys as well. But I just think this is a fun team. I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, a lot of interesting games. If I'm an Arizona fan, I'm pumped and ready for the season, and I'm thinking sky's the limit. If we get a healthy Kyler and everybody else comes in and performs, I mean, this team could be super dangerous.
Yeah. There's really not much to say as far as the San Francisco 49ers are concerned, because everybody knows that it's George Kittle and George Kittle only. He led the team he has like 5 catches a game every game when he's healthy. The problem is that he's such an outstanding blocker. He's such a mentally, horse blinder, just player of being savage on the field. He does everything that he's supposed to do as a football player, and he's got the old school tight end mentality to go with that. So he does get hurt because he's all over the place. He's blocking for guys downfield. He's blocking on run plays. He's blocking on receiving plays. He's catching the ball across the middle. He is fantastic across the board. Injuries are going to come to guys like that who are so involved in every play. But when he's on the field, he is fantastic. So it's not much to say here. It's George Kittle, and that's it. There's nobody else on this team that's going to do anything if George Kittle goes down. So that's it. But other than that, you guys, that's all of our positions here. That's all we really kind of had to talk about. We talk about with a lot of the people who live around the stadiums they're at. We talk about what's so good about being in the stadium. But you guys are not really fans. Have you been to any of these stadiums yet? Any of you guys?
No, I was supposed to go. We were supposed to go to Seattle for a game for my 40th birthday, and then COVID happened. So,
damn it, COVID.
We're postponing that off for a couple years. We'll go on 45 or something like that.
I've been to Arizona. I was there when they played the Bears, and it was about 107,000 degrees outside. So I'm fat, so it didn't work out very well. We walked about 3 miles to get to the stadium, and I felt like when I got there, I lost 17 pounds. When I walked in, the air conditioning was on inside the stadium. I was like, oh my God, because they have a retractable roof, and I'm like, if that roof is open when I get in here, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go watch it at the bar.
So, I was thinking the same thing. Everything I hear about Arizona Stadium is it's a super nice stadium, high end, everything nice there. But yeah, the heat. I was the same way. I'd have to go to a night game, or I'm like, please have that roof, because if I was sitting out at a noon game or a early afternoon game in that blazing sun, I would be melting. I'd have to drink 35 beers just to try to stay alive.
We were in the pool before the game at like 9 a.m. It was already getting hot, and I'm like, holy cow, like it's only supposed to be 117 here today. I go, what did you just say? He goes, oh, it's only supposed to be 117. He's like, it was like 127 last week. I'm like, 127? When it gets like 67 in my house, I get starts sweating, 117. Yeah, it was terrible. So, but that's I was there. That's only of the 4 stadiums here. It's the only one I've been to. So, but so on the way out, one more time, Seahawks Dan, tell me about yourself, where everybody can find you at, what's going on, all the good stuff in the Twitter community.
All right, I'm at Seahawks Dan 8. Basically, I'll be on IDP Nation. I normally drop in there every once in a while to bother Daryl mainly and pump up Kyle a little bit. And basically, I'll be doing the eliminators. You can check out my pinned tweet if you want to sign up. I think J Mike is the offense only celebrity. Dynasty Trip is our mixed celebrity. And then Johnny the Greek is our IDP only. We got spots in all 3 of those. They're $10. Good fun. John's bad word at best ball. Draft and go. But I just like to leave with F the Niners, F the Cardinals, and F the Rams. And I don't care if I'm going 2-15 this year.
There you go.
Give Drew Lock a chance. Come on, Seattle. Give him a chance.
Free Drew Lock.
Yes.
JT, tell me about yourself again. You're exactly 2 hours and 5 minutes away from my house. So let me know when I'm coming up there. Me and Kyle, I'll stop in Yorkville and grab Kyle. We'll come up there to the bar.
Do it.
Absolutely. Anytime we want to do a draft there or anything like that, I'm always hosting at the brewery and the restaurant. You follow me on Twitter, JT Orange. I'm on Twitter all the time, kind of interacting with people. I'm part of the Dynasty Theory Discord with those guys. I do a lot of stuff on there for people that are in there, jumping around, asking questions. I jump in a lot of the IDP talk, trying to get more of the Devi C2C stuff. So a lot of people ask me questions about that haven't actually played in those leagues, because I've run a bunch of Dynasty IDP leagues for quite a while now, and I do a bunch of different formats. So always can hit me up on there. And I'm also on gambling Twitter. So once the football season starts, people like to refer to me as JT Parlay. I just cannot help but do parlays. I'm Mr. 3 for 4, consistently 3 for 4 all the time on the parlays. Yep. So every once in a while I'll get a winner in there, but I go 3 for 4 a lot of times. You just got to figure out which one I'm going to lose and then go the opposite way on that one, and then you're golden. So I'll post a lot of bets and different things I think on my Twitter page as well. So anybody that got questions or want to send stuff over there, feel free to hit me up.
I'm a sucker for 16 parlays. That's what I do all the time. Because I'm an idiot. So that's I think
just get that extra bump, that extra juice. It's just you got to throw that extra game in there, and it just takes it off. I love doing the 4 and 5 hockey and baseball parlays. I'm always into 4 or 5 of those. I keep trying to talk myself into Justin. Just do a 2-team parlay in football. NFL, just 2 teams. Do 3 2-teamers instead of 1 6-teamer, and you probably have better odds and end up winning, because my percentages are pretty high on my picks, but too often I'm not winning the cash because I got them in a parlay.
Right. Kyle, see us out here.
Man, appreciate you again having me on. It's always good hanging out with you and talking some football with you boys tonight. You can check out the Fantasy Football Smackdown. Had a little redraft primer show earlier this week. Again, you can find that podcast on the Dynasty Warzone feed. So just search Dynasty Warzone wherever you listen to podcasts. Hopefully you guys have probably seen the Warzone before with Memphis and Jerry. Those guys kill it. every single week. So if you're subscribed to that feed, the SmackDown will be in there twice a week through the month of August. I will show in there tomorrow, Friday, the 5th of August, going through quarterbacks. Going to cover each of the positions, have some more redraft fun, got some guests lined up for this month. And then again, I'll be hammering some waiver wire stuff. That's kind of my favorite thing to talk about in season. So I think that's really where the difference is made. If you're active on the wire, if you're ahead of the game. So I do a waiver wire show, kind of that traditional. And then I do a show called Waiver Wire Sniping every Saturday morning. In essence, it's kind of like a look ahead. So you can grab guys for cheap before they hit the next day, take flyers on guys like, high value handcuffs, those types of players. So do that in season. But you can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. If you're going to the Fantasy Football Expo, which is about a week away, I'm going to be there. So hit me up. I'd love to meet any of you guys in person. It's a good time. But other than that, John, thanks again for having me on, man.
Yeah, I was supposed to be at the expo myself. I got a ticket. I was ready to go. Awesome. And then my family decided to have a family reunion on Saturday, Sunday of the same weekend as the expo.
They didn't want to have it in Canton, Ohio?
It would have been awesome. They could have been sitting in George's and got free, cheap food. And
George's, baby.
George's was absolutely fantastic. For anybody going to the expo, it is an absolute blast. I really, really, really wish I can go back this year, but I will do everything I possibly can. I will make sure that I'm not at the family reunion next year if it's scheduled the same weekend. So
I will have a few Jameson ginger ales in your honor.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, you guys, thanks so much for making part 8 of this 8-part series. Absolutely fantastic. This is a commissioner evaluation podcast. It's what I do for fun, and you guys make it awesome. So thanks for joining me this week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we're out.